Ladies and gentlemen, it is episode 34 of In the Bag. Welcome to the podcast. Brad, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. Although the weather outside is frightful, it is delightful here at Foundation Disc. See what I did? Look at that. That's like full dad joke mode, and I love it.
Hey, I'm here for it. The holidays have arrived for lots of you. You probably are traveling this weekend, and what a convenient time that you have an hour to spend with us in the car.
Yep, in the car, in the bag, in the car. Here we go.
Absolutely love it. Well, y'all, it is going to be a really fun day. We have someone who's like actually has a lot of clout in terms of the social media world, and very excited to meet them, but not in a way that you would expect. Should be a very unique guest, and they're very new to the game. So, Brad, I know the conditions weren't great, but like just as a sneak preview, how did you feel about the discs themselves?
Well, I like them, and you know, it's funny. I have both of these just to try myself. This is a gap I'm trying to put in my bag now that I'm feeling a little more comfortable. So I'm looking for the spot in my bag too. So it helped me mentally get where I'm going to be working on that for myself. So good episode, good feedback on the discs, and kind of found a shot that I didn't know I could throw, and I couldn't throw it like 6 months ago. So we'll talk a little bit about that.
Come on with it. Well, let's not tease it anymore. Let's bring in our guest.
All right. Sounds good.
Welcome to the podcast. Mark, we are so happy to have you here, man.
How's it going?
Welcome in the back.
Thank you very much. I am so looking forward to this because I don't even know what to put in my bag.
Some days I feel the same. So you are definitely in the right place. Mark, we were talking a little bit before we got recording. So you are no stranger to social media, but not because like, hey, you are just this like crazy famous, personality or something like that. What kind of social media content do you do?
It's my dog. It's all about my dog. He's a retired police dog who did quite well during his time in service, won a lot of awards. We went on a TV show called America's Top Dog. We won our episode, came in second in the champions, wrote a kid's book. So it's just been, he's a really cool dog that makes me look a lot better than I am. And I love telling his story. So that's kind of where we got popularity from.
I love it.
Is amazing. We are a dog family through and through.
Same over here.
We are here for it. Very excited for this. Y'all check him out. We'll make sure that we give opportunity at the end of the episode for y'all to see links and all of that to Mattis and what they are doing. But something in terms of the dog world, we also talked about before we got recording. So Mattis police dog, that means you have like the big suit, and I'm sure y'all seen the videos of like dog just going 100 miles an hour, flying at him, biting into the big like marshmallow looking suit. Brad, we stand on opposite sides of how we feel about getting in the suit or not.
I'm 100% for it. Like, it's on my list of things I want to accomplish. It's like get in a cage with a great white. Number 2 is like get attacked by either like a Belgian or a German Shepherd in one of those suits.
Number 2, like the great white is just like hanging out, swimming around.
Right.
You don't even get to touch him, see him really, or anything. Like the dog gets to bite you. That should be number 1.
That's true. It could move up there. I think it's more of like an accessibility thing. Like I feel like I'm more if I had a choice, I don't know, maybe it is number 1, but it's kind of one of those things. Like, have you ever seen I forget what movie it was. I think it was some A Fault in Our Stars or something, but that
Never
guy
seen it.
like, I don't know if you have any reason to.
I'll say Brad reads a lot of young adult fiction.
It's
quite
I love to cry, So, but the guy in there, he doesn't smoke, but he puts a cigarette in his mouth. He's like, I just want to know that death is right there. I think that's how I feel about like getting attacked by a dog. I'm like, I love dogs; they're so cute and cuddly, but I want to feel the raw power of the dog.
Yes.
I don't want to actually get hurt by it, but I want to feel the raw, untamed power of what those dogs can do. So,
well, I know this isn't a dog bite podcast, but I tell you, you get bruised up from the bite. So it's pretty cool. I love it. Now, the one caveat I have to throw in here is the only suit that I have is made for a little person like myself. Like I'm 5'6", and so there's going to be a lot probably expenditures exposed for you. So anyway, even more danger.
I love a little bit of danger, not a lot, just a little bit.
You should
all
have
the reason. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say you should have your followers, your subscribers comment who they like to see, because Robbie doesn't want to have it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Brad does, but let the people decide.
Well, and
I'm
the fact that
saying-
we're saying that it's a smaller suit puts me all the more into reason that I am not jumping into this suit.
Yeah, the camera doesn't show, but Robbie's like 400 feet tall. It's just not, it will not work for him. But here's what I think. Commenters, this is where you come out of the woodwork. If you've never commented before, comment today. I'm proposing
This is Mattis.
I go down to Alabama. I meet Robbie up at his home course. We play around. Loser gets attacked by Mattis in the suit. What do we all think? Do you want to see it?
That's fair. And to make it fair, do we have to have like a handicap? Like, do we have
Yeah, you're going to beat me, obviously. So we'll figure out the handicap and what's going to go on. So
Wow,
I think that
was nice of you,
he's
Robbie.
kind.
Yeah,
He's kind.
Like he's like, I want it to be fair, even if I might get bit.
Exactly. Well, especially if we're coming down to my home courses, it's already, we have an experience advantage. So we want to make sure that, we keep this up.
Yeah.
It'll be great. But y'all, like we said, this isn't a dog bite podcast. We want to talk about a bag, and we have Mark here to discuss his bag. So, Mark, my first question for you, we got a couple questions we asked to get to know our guest. How long have you been playing disc golf?
Well, I mean, you can go back like 20 years to when I was out in California, and like maybe twice a year or so, I'd go out and I'd get a contact high from the people playing in front of me and behind me. And so I was like, this is fun, but I don't know. And so
not my people.
Fast forward about 20 years to where we are today, and just started probably 2 months ago, really getting into it, starting watching YouTube videos, trying to figure out how to do it exactly, because I had discs from 20 years ago that basically went 50 feet into the left. And I threw one and hit a tree and it exploded. And so I was like, I got to figure out which discs to get. So started Googling which discs go the furthest, which I think is probably how everyone, right, gets into disc golf. Like, all right, I want to dominate. And then started learning things and getting discs. So really about 2 months, 3 months maybe of hot and heavy, digging it, loving the content that's out there now. So much to learn, so many great personalities that are out there willing to teach. So it's because of the community, it's really made me fall even more in love with it, right? Is because there's so many great things that are out there now.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it is 100% my favorite part of content creation. Isn't like that I get to say, oh man, I do this for a job. It's the people that are on the other side of the screen and getting to talk to y'all and communicate with y'all. So, and the creators as well. It's been really fun getting to know them. So when it comes to your distance and you feel like you're playing the game, we want to get an accurate read on, okay, we watch Mark step out to the course. You're looking at a hole, you see a backhand opportunity, you see a forehand opportunity. How far are you throwing a golf shot?
So backhand wide open. I can get 300 plus out of a backhand consistently, unless I throw it into the dirt 10 feet in front of me. Right. So,
for sure.
Forehand. So I have a weird thing, and I didn't tell you this. I have a fused wrist. So it really limits what I can do with a forehand. I can get about 150, 160 out of a forehand that I've gotten because I can only cock my wrist so far. And so that kind of limits the amount of distance I'm able to do out of a forehand.
That's fair. I definitely, I have a question regarding what discs in your bag. We'll kind of dive into it. I have one more question to ask, but we'll kind of segue it. I'll come out after this. What discs in your bag are you trying to throw on a forehand?
So anything with turn and not much turn, but with fade. Because if I get it going, it'll start heading to the left a little bit and fall back nicely. And that's what I have to depend on. So lower speed,
Okay.
Is what I try to focus on with those. I don't want to get too high speed. Just because, like I said, I can't put much torque on it with my wrist.
Yeah. Okay.
But
yeah. So
I also don't know anything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
if I'm doing it wrong,
totally.
I'm good with
So
that.
your motion, is it a lot of like right to left? You come over top of it, or are you kind of like trying to put it on like the forehand hyzer, which is that outside edge being down?
So try to go flat as I can. It probably drops a little bit of hyzer on it. And then fling, but it's just like if you even see my grip, it's like super loose just because if I go back at all, it just releases my hand. It's such a weak part of my game. I actually went and played with Jacob Chesser. And he was like, "Oh, why don't you try the forehand?" And so he was trying to, and it actually came in useful for a very limited amount of space that I could use, and what he taught me. So it was helpful. But like I said, I think I'm pretty limited there.
Yeah. So the biggest thing is, especially looking at your bag, I know a lot of players focus on that overstable side of things you're talking about with the fade, because you're throwing it flat. And if you that was my question on terms of wrist rotation, is if you're able to throw hyzers, like if we can get the arm to swoop down to up more, then I think that would open your forehand opportunities, because for less power, understable discs. So if you go on the opposite end of the spectrum, you can, with a lot less effort, because they want to fight over to the left, you can hit them with less power and they'll do that naturally for you and get a lot more distance. Like my max distance forehands are not with my most overstable discs in my bag. I have a super flippy Wraith that I throw basically horizontal or like vertical, and it just stands all the way up, rolls over, and then comes back. And that's max distance. So your honey or your destroyer, or your honey could be a really great option, not the destroyer kind of a deal.
Well, my destroyer is like it just changed into super flippy. Like it is unreal. Like if I put a lot of torque on it, it goes right and just keeps going right. It doesn't finish left at all. So, and it has a hole from Madison in it too. So I don't know if that helps.
That's fair. That's fair. So last question.
Yeah.
Because we're there. So we're going to jump into the distance drivers real fast. So what would you say is the biggest weakness of your game? Probably your forehand, I'm guessing.
Yeah. I mean, I try my best not to use it, but like I played a super technical course yesterday, and I had to, it was one of those that I absolutely had to, and it was useful. I just know my limitations. Like there's no way that I could do a 200-yard forehand. But if I'm trying to do a quick turn, then I can pick it up and use it for 70, 100 yards or so. Or not yards, that'd be fantastic. Feet.
All right. I got what you were saying.
Yeah.
But also, if you're throwing it 200 yards, Matt, props to you. Well, the Pro Tour is ready for you.
Yes.
If you're throwing a 200-yard forehand.
Bring it.
Casually. Yeah. So I said we're going to start at this.
I don't know if I answered you because I kind of skipped it, but forehand's definitely a huge weakness. And then, I'm brand new, so it's consistency and trying to learn what I should be doing and what kind of discs. Like right now, I like really straight. Like that's what I found is I have gone back down to my putters. I like 5 speeds. 7 and below basically is really my wheelhouse that I love to throw. And then I like the honey a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's fantastic. Do you have is it the wild honey? Like you have a newer one or
Wild honey.
Awesome. So let's start with putters then, because we're what the disc we had Brad try is actually in the driver category. So we'll end there. We'll start slow, move up. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to, you have a guard and a pure, do you putt with both, or is one a thrower, one's a putter?
No, I don't do much with the guard. I really don't. And sorry to anyone out there that loves them, but I'm not a huge fan of the guard. I love the feel of the pure because it almost feels like a rock that just you could toss exactly where you want it to go. So I love the pure. I love the pure. And so I try to do as much as possible with the pure.
Yeah. Brad, have you thrown a pure yet?
Yeah, I threw one in the episode we did with Jesse when we were testing out the inner core.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't mind the pure at all. It is a very, very straight disc.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
So,
and because it is, I would say, the bread and butter disc of the Latitude lineup.
mm-hmm.
It is that it comes in a billion different plastics.
Yeah.
So if you really love your pure for putting, and I'm guessing you throw it as well sometimes.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I love to throw it.
Yeah, I would check it out in honestly, as many plastics as you can find. For me personally, I bagged an Eco Pure for a long time because it was base plastic, but you could hit a tree as hard as you want. And normally base plastic like warps when it does that.
Mm-hmm.
And the Eco Pure, you could just mold back into place and like shape it again.
I like to hit trees.
Yeah. There you go.
I don't like to hit them, but I do hit them quite often. So it was quite helpful in that regard. It also comes in like an optoplastic, and their gold line, I think, is their fusion equivalent. Yep. So it just comes in a million different plastics. One of my friends down here that I play a lot with is a huge fan of the pure. And it's when I see him step up and grab a pure, I know that it's going exactly where he wants it to go.
Yeah.
So definitely check it out in that category.
That's one of my weaknesses, or huge weaknesses as well, is the plastics and everything is completely foreign to me. I know it has an effect. I don't understand the effect, right? I've just gotten really kind of the flight numbers down a little bit, right? So new that the plastics are foreign and the weights, it's like trying to figure that out. Like I should probably be throwing lighter weights, I think. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know.
If you're getting about 300,
you're probably okay.
Oh, okay.
But I think in the most simple form, and correct me if I'm wrong, Robbie, it's more of like weight to disc basically either increases the effect the flight numbers have on the flight or decreases, in my opinion. So, for instance, the discs I threw today were both lightweight.
Okay.
So it's going to exaggerate the flight for me. For my arm speed, is going to slightly exaggerate maybe those characteristics, or it means I can back off my power and get the same characteristics and not have to kill it. Robbie, correct me. Am I correct here or am I incorrect?
Yeah, you're definitely correct. The way I worded it a little differently, but that's the way that I worded it, is that flight numbers are a threshold. Mm-hmm. So especially speed, that first number, everyone thinks the speed is how far it's going to go, faster disc, more distance, and that's not inherently incorrect, but also if you don't meet the threshold requirements of spin and power needed for the disc, the rest, like the flight numbers, don't matter. So when it's lighter weight, the threshold naturally lowers. So like Brad said, if you blast past the threshold because you're throwing a lighter weight disc, suddenly if it's already got some turn to it, it is it is definitely going to flip over. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that's, you don't necessarily have to go to the lighter weights. Two pures that I would recommend I would recommend seriously a gold line pure. Mm-hmm. There are some Kristen Tatar signature ones that are incredible. Like the pure doesn't have a slot in my bag, but if I suddenly signed with Latitude 64 next year, I would 100% be putting pures in my bag and I'd be putting the gold line one in because it's so good.
And something else about plastic, Mark, too, while you made a comment about plastic, like if you put in a more premium plastic pure in your bag and maybe use that for throwing, it's going to beat in less fast and keep those characteristics longer than a baseline plastic trying to throw and putt with it. It's going to get very beat in very quickly. Sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes it's not.
Okay.
Absolutely. We love baseline here on the podcast, but premium plastic putter, that was very difficult to say, we are huge fans.
Okay.
Huge fans. So moving up to your mid-ranges, it looks like you've got 3 mid-ranges in the bag right now with the mint, the Mako 3, and the peach.
Yes.
So what are the differences between your Mako 3 and your peach?
The peach will go well. It's kind of funny because I can make the Mako. If I put enough torque on the Mako, I can turn it over and get it to the right quite nicely. But the peach does that with a tad of fade on the end, just ever so slightly. So if I turn over the Mako, it's going to keep going right. Where with the peach, I know if I throw it right, that it'll finish to the left just a little bit. So I like that. So I see them as different. No, and also no matter what I do to the Mako, it's flipping up the straight or going to the right. Like that's the only options I have with it. I can't put it on hyzer and have it come back unless I throw super low speed, and then it almost just drops straight. So the peach is different there.
Do you know what plastic your Mako's in?
Well, let me see. I have it right here. It is this plastic.
Star.
Okay. Star. Awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
Fantastic.
That's, I guess, what the Star Mako means right there. Okay.
There you go.
Beginner boys.
Hey,
Yeah.
And if it says champion Mako, that's champion plastic.
Gotcha.
So those are sir. Yes, sir. I'm now questioning myself if they make DX Mako 3s. I bet they do, but if they do, I wonder if it like says DX at the top. I'm not sure about that one.
Yeah, I'm trying to think on the Innova order form if I saw one last time. I really couldn't tell you right now. That's a shame.
Hey, that's fine. So, okay. So that is fantastic. That you're getting a Mako to do that consistently. For a lot of people, the Mako is a very neutral disc. And so neutral to understable. A lot of people oversell it as an understable disc. We've talked about this on the podcast before. We take the stance that the Mako is not understable. It is a neutral disc that, like you said, you can get it to get all the way over to the right, but it's not just naturally going to do that without you pushing it in that direction. So another slot that I can kind of see that could be good, and really what we want to look for in this when we're building a bag, because I know, Mark, you're brand new. You're trying to figure out, hey, I don't know plastics. I definitely don't know molds.
Yeah.
What am I looking for? So rather than overwhelm you with, hey, you need this mold and this mold and this mold and this mold. So that can be way too much. And while you can go back and listen to the episode again and be like, they said this. Cool. If you're listening to this podcast and you find yourself in Mark's shoes of I'm very new, trying to figure it all out, really a dream setup in each category of putters, mid-ranges, fairways, and distance drivers is you want a disc that goes straight, you want a disc that goes to the right, and you want a disc that goes to the left. If you're left-handed, they're going to go in the opposite order, but that's like the reason that we say left and right rather than overstable, turnover. Yeah, that's real fancy for no reason.
Yeah.
So,
and breaking news, they do make DX Mako 3s.
Okay, come on. There we go. I was like, next time Brad talks, I'm going to pull up Intervis order form from my team days.
That sounds like a cool rapper name too. I'm just going to say.
Yeah,
DX Mako 3.
I like that.
Yeah,
I agree. Well, hey,
X's going to give it to you.
You're looking to, if you're going to get into something else, Mark, there you go. You got your rap name.
Yeah. What's your rapper name? I'm DX Mako 3 in the house.
Mid-ranges.
Dropped him. So you have your Mako 3, which is straight. You have your peach that goes right and still has some finish to it. But the more you use that peach, the peaches they've only been out for a couple months. So I'd imagine it's still probably a fairly new disc anyways within your bag. So the more that beats in, that fade that it has will leave pretty quickly. The only other option that I would look at is you do have your mint, which goes left, and I'm sure it goes left hard. But something that lives between that mint and that Mako 3, we've talked about it a lot. You've got the Buzz, you have the Rock 3, you've got there's a billion options in that category. Yeah. So
I don't know if I'll get in trouble, but I just got a Buzz. And it kind of it's right in between that mint, like you were saying.
As it should be.
This one.
Yeah.
It's a purple one. It says Buzz, yes. And it does.
Little ESP swirl.
Yeah. Oh, that's exactly what I was about to say.
There you go. Yeah, and that should live right between those two. So that's good to know. And my question is the mint. Are you using that on forehand, like a forehand approach? Are you using your mint for that?
I will, just because I know exactly what it's going to do. Like I can, I know what that one's going to do if I throw it on forehand. So yes, and then also if I'm trying to avoid obstacles to finish left, and also like some distance when I need to turn a corner on the left side. So I like the mint a lot.
I think that's a pivotal part. Again, speaking to you, someone who's fairly new or getting back into it, and anyone that's listening as well. But I mean, I lean on that type of disc very heavily. And again, I don't throw super far. I'm still fairly new, but that is a disc that slot, like that Overstable 4-speed, because you have your Razor Claw 3, which is it's a tactic, right, Robbie? And then you have your zones, you have mint. There's like every manufacturer has that disc because you can lean heavy on it like that. And you said your forehand is like under 150 feet, and that's fine. That's all you need for that disc. So when I'm like 100, probably like 120 out, or to like that 100, maybe 200 in my case, and I need to, maybe I have a difficult upshot and I need to get around something, but I need it to go right, then I'm forehanding that type of disc every single time. So that might be something you start to like work in your game of, hey, I'm 120 feet out. I really need this. And where it comes into play too is and something I'm starting to think about more, and sorry, I don't mean to be on a tangent here, but as I'm approaching, I'm like, okay, what is the miss? What's the appropriate miss? Do I want to go long right and skip right? Is that okay? Or do I want to go long and skip left? So that's where I'm finding myself choosing between, am I throwing a backhand type of approach disc like this, or am I throwing a forehand type of approach disc like that? So as you're kind of building things around it, like that slot, as you play more, I think it's going to become very important to you. And for me, like that's the place in my bag I want to have a disc that I'm confident in. So just wanted to point that out, Robbie, while we're talking about the mint.
Yeah, I mean, if you've watched any of my content ever, I talk about pig is love, pig is life, and it's exactly what Brad's saying. Like I step up, and if I put a pig in my hand and I'm within 200 feet of the basket, odds are, even if I have things in my way, I am fairly confident that I will be putting on my next throw because I'm going to put that thing close.
Yeah,
and it's because it does what you're saying, of that reliable.
But you can putt from 120 feet out. I've seen you, man. You do little dancing, and then you put it in the basket. So pig just
that is it's helpful for sure. And with what my personal coach is trying to add to my game, he wants me not even jump putting from that range. He wants me just spin putting from now on. So it's just a whole process, y'all. We're trying to improve. I'm trying to take home a Creators Cup next year. I'm just saying. Yes. So we got big ambitions.
Yeah.
So moving on to fairway drivers. So you had said that 7 speeds were kind of like the top end of your bread and butter right now, where you're feeling the most comfortable. Not that you won't throw distance drivers, but really dig in the straightness of these fairway drivers. So there's one disc that I've fallen in love with a lot recently that you have in your bag, and then another disc right next to it that I also really love. So talk to me about the Sting versus the Soda.
Well, I'm just learning the Soda. So for me right now, the Soda that I have, it's a lot more stable, overstable, right? So it finishes to the left a lot more than the Sting does. If I throw the Sting flat, I know I'm going to get a pretty good move to the right with a slight finish. So, I like the distance on the Sting too. So with the Soda right now in my bag, which nope. My dogs think they can play with it. It's a real disc god one Soda.
Okay.
So it has that -2 for the turn, but I have not seen the -2 in it thus far with me. So it flies much differently than the Sting does.
Yeah. I found the same thing when I was throwing the Soda. I think for me, what got me was that rounded rim on the Soda. I found it very difficult to keep the nose down. on the soda because of that rounded rim. Like it felt so different in my hands that all my mechanics just broke down while I was throwing it. And I was like, yeah. And because of that, it wasn't flying as, like you said, as understable as that option. So that makes a lot of sense. How does your Maverick fly for you?
Oh my
the
goodness.
Maverick is very dicey.
I love, like I have, I just got I got an F3, which I think is the same thing, right? Just based on the way that the two fly for me.
Yeah.
But the Maverick, I have to show you what's on the back of this. I don't know if you can see that. It says use this one. I love the way that this thing flies. It goes super straight for me. And then we'll finish just to the left. But I like most shots, if it's a little bit further out than I can reach with an approach or a putter, I'm tossing this guy because I love the way that it flies and finishes consistently for me.
Yeah. Can I see the front of it? I can't tell based on looking at the plastic if
Fusion?
it is Fusion or
it says Fusion.
Perfect. Yep.
So
I have a question for you. So can you throw your Maverick as far as you can throw your Honey?
No, not even close. That Honey is ridiculous.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. It's the first out of the bag driver that I've had that I could just move, and it's like I love open holes where I can throw. I threw one that was wooded yesterday, and just got lucky. It was like about 325 feet, and it missed every single tree. It had the beautiful turn. It turned to the right and finished to the left, 10 feet within the basket. Missed the putt for eagle, but it was so cool. Like it was the coolest throw I think I've ever thrown in my life. I love that Honey.
Yeah, I'm just trying to gauge again, kind of where your arm speed is, because I know even still I can throw some of my like 9 speeds as far as I can throw a 12 speed.
Oh, nice.
Or farther, just because it matches a little bit, with my arm speed. Obviously, if your arm speed is closer to the speed of the disc, going back to Robbie's point about threshold, you're going to get the maximum flight and intended flight for said disc.
Gotcha.
So I always like to ask because, now your Raider, and sorry to jump into distance drivers, I'm just curious. Yeah. Now, what about your Raider? Do you throw that very far, or is that just like I need to get around? Okay.
Basically I need a little more distance and a hard finish left. I don't have the mechanics or the arm speed or something to make that do what it's supposed to do.
Okay, that was my other question. Go ahead, Robbie. Sorry, I had to.
Yeah, no, I mean to round out the distance drivers, is your Destroyer DX?
Do you know? Let me see. It is this one. I don't know how old that one is either. Like it is. Yeah. It is old. There's a tooth hole right there because I threw it into the water, and Mattis was kind enough to go down, find it for me, grab it out of the water, but he grabbed a little aggressively, so it has a tooth mark in it. But yeah. I think it says 167. I don't know what plastic that is, though.
Yeah. So you've got lightweight, you've got destroyed flight plate, and it's a DX. That is going to be the flippiest destroyer on the planet, probably.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. I was talking with the Swanky Disc Golf guys the other day, and when we filmed a video together, we saw someone step up and they threw a destroyer, and it flipped up to flat, kind of turned a little bit. And I asked that person, I was like, "Oh, what'd you throw there?" And they said, "Oh, it was a destroyer." And I was like, "Wow, that must be pretty beat in." And then they kept walking away. And one of the Swanky guys said, "It's so funny how people come across a certain mold, especially when they're new. It can drastically change how they feel about the mold. Because if that's the only destroyer that you've ever thrown, you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, so the destroyer is supposed to be like a flippy molt because this thing turns over a lot."
Well, but to me, it was one of those, and this is, I think I've told you, Robbie, is like watching your content. I threw this and it did the same thing as the Raider, right? It was hook to the left, hook to the left, hook to the left, right? And then I started watching like some mechanics and getting the nose down and arm speed and pulling with the elbow, the power, like learning all these little tricks from you guys who are putting great content out there. And then all of a sudden I threw it once and it went past the hole. It went straight. I threw it on a little bit of a hyzer. It flipped up. It went straight and finished left past the hole, which was like, I think it was like 350. It was a far hole. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. So Yeah, it was super overstable for me until I started learning how to throw it, and then it was getting more and more beat in as well. And then, like I said, last couple of rounds, I threw it and it just went right, and I'm like, "What in the world was that?" So now I have to throw it on hyzer, or else it won't ever go straight.
Yeah. I that's awesome. Like that is improvement, and that's what we're looking for. And I guarantee you, if you go pick up a Star Destroyer or something like that, it's going to fly exactly like your Raider, and you're going to be like, "Wow, this is used. Like I hate this." But the Swanky guys were telling me that a guy they had met had a like 150 gram DX Destroyer that looks like it had lived in a swamp for 4 years, and that's what he pulled out of his bag, and he was like, "Yeah, man, it just immediately goes over to the right." I'm like,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. So, looking at your bag, Mark, what we want to do is we want to kind of equip you with some different distance options. You have the honey, but the honey, even like you described, kind of has that flex flight out of it. So it's going to get over to the right, but then it's going to come back. The discs we want to talk about today are more understable than the honey.
Wow.
But that isn't necessarily a bad thing. That can teach us a lot. Like that can teach us a lot. And that's what I kind of want to hear what Brad, as you experience these. So Brad, what did you get out and throw today?
All right. We threw the DGA sail today in the PL plastic. It's 156 grams. And we threw the Halo Mamba 155. So, both, just so you know, for listeners' sake and Mark, for your sake, 11.6, -5.1 on the Mamba, 11.5, -5.1 on the sail. So those are the intended flights, at least. So that's what I threw out today, Robbie. What can we help Mark here?
Okay, so last week we threw some understable. You threw the crazy understable assassin because of its lightweightness. How you're at 10 grams heavier this week with the addition of eggnog and the no, I'm just kidding. So you threw those two this week. How did you feel about, like, we're 2 weeks in a row throwing lightweight discs? Did you feel a little more comfortable with it this week?
Yeah, it's much welcome too, because I'm still dealing with that stupid elbow. So it's much welcome. It's making me like slow down my speed a little bit, really focus on the release. So yeah, it definitely is making sense. It's feeling a little bit better throwing them.
Okay. Now the Mamba is in halo plastic. Traditionally, we found that to be more overstable for lots of molds that are out there. What were kind of the stability differences between the Mamba and the sail?
Yeah, I think the Halo Mamba was definitely had like a touch. Again, I'm saying stability as much as a -5 disc can have stability, right? But it definitely wasn't like, oh, it's immediately going right and rolling. Like it did like handle some of the torque or some misfires from me, right? It still wanted to finish right. But if I gave it like enough hyzer, I could actually get it to like flip up, carry right, and like kind of almost want to come back. It wouldn't keep carrying right, if that makes sense. So the Halo plastic did have a more stability.
Okay. Now, did you 6 glide? You know, I love when discs try to advertise 6 glide, because that is, you know, like that is just so deceptive at times. You felt like it did or did not?
For me, I definitely feel like the sail had more glide, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
If I'm assigning glide to discs, I have a problem with that number the more I throw things. The only two discs make sense for the amount of glide that they say. I'll give the River credit in that category. I definitely feel like the River has the glide it says it does.
Yeah.
And
which is 7, which is insane.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel that. And other people throwing it, I feel that too. And number 2, and I'm actually going to say this is a glitch. I believe that too.
I can see the glitch. The only time the glitch doesn't glide is if you putt with it. And I can speak from Vlogmas experience. Don't putt with a glitch. Yeah. It is horrific.
Yeah.
So okay, so you tried those out. What were some of the shot shapes that you felt like you could get with those discs?
Yeah. So interesting enough. So it's obviously both of those are pretty easy for me to hyzer flip to turn, which in that kind of driver space, I have like the jackalope for like a fairway, and I have, some other like Mindbender and Uplink that I can kind of like get the flip up and either go straight or carry right. But I've not really found it. It's a spot I'm missing, Mark, which is why I was happy about this episode. Like I'm trying to figure out this like pretty understable driver slot because I really could use it. But, I could really do like the flip up to carry to the right. I could, the one that I liked that I threw probably more times than I needed to was I did this nice like baby Annie kind of thing. And I could get them to go very high, like nose up and turn and do a roller angle and actually get a decent roller, which I've never been able to throw until today.
Wow.
So that's a cool shape to get. Also, like a very, like if I hit it with some power on a lot of hyzer, I could get it to pop up and just carry like barely right, but I had to give it a lot of hyzer. So it was very shapeable. I'll summarize it with this, Robbie. It was very shapeable to the right. I had a lot of options to the right, more than I thought, because I thought they both, for me, in this lightweight would just like burn over, but they really didn't. And I didn't have to hit them very hard, but I had a lot of options on the understable side, a lot of shapes there. Not really any to the left. These discs don't really want to get left at all for a right-hand backhand player, but that's kind of my experience with them today.
Yeah. And that's something that I think is incredibly valuable, having that turnover, especially, Mark, if you're kind of struggling in the long distance forehand category. Something this understable could give you that big, slow pan to the right over time, because that's another shot that I think is more of an intermediate to experienced player shot, is how to figure out how to start the disc on hyzer and to get it to go up on a Sky Annie the entire way. So because you'll see a Garrett Gerthy or the big arms of the world throw when they're going on that huge Sky Flex, they're throwing a disc similar to these Sail and the Mamba, and somehow they're getting it to go that high, flex over, and then not just fall out at the right. So that would be something that you can, play around with these discs and learn with. And I love that you got both of them in lightweights, Brad, because if you fall in love with this disc, Mark, they make Sails in max weight. They make Mambas in max weight. They make Halo Mambas in max weight. They make Champion Star. Like, it's a very versatile mold, and the Sail is a staple of the DGA lineup. So it also comes in a variety of stuff.
And one shot too, Robbie, sorry, just thinking back to it, it was, again, for the third time in the last 4 episodes, pouring down the rain with a lot of wind. And what was nice too, and just a shot to think about, and I didn't think about this till today, but I was throwing straight and had a really strong right to left crosswind. So typically if I threw like my Vulture, which is historically pretty straight with a hard fade at the end, that a Vulture would have gone, just kept going left to become very super overstable. But what was nice is throwing very understable disc into a right to left crosswind. It actually flew kind of like a normal, it was like pretty straight flight with a little finish at the end if I threw it like straight into the crosswind. So just thinking about, I have these understable discs. If I need something to still finish left, but I'm throwing into a right to left crosswind, I can throw these understable discs to get like kind of a normal flight versus a very understable flight. So just why I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. So that's a lot of the pros of the disc. And a question that I realize we never really kind of ask about the discs. What are the cons? Like, what are the drawbacks that you saw in these molds?
I would say that if you mess up on your throw, you're going to really mess up. That's maybe the scary part of a very understable like this. Also, like, I think they're very like power sensitive too. So you really have to be very aware of how much heat you're putting on these discs. So this isn't something you can just step up and you're like, I'm going to hit this with everything that I have, or, you know what I mean? You have to be very self-aware of how you're throwing these discs. So there's a lot of potential for cool shots and shot shapes, but a lot of potential to mess up. Definitely for me.
Mess up, what does that look like? Like if it were to go horribly wrong, what does that look like?
Okay, so for instance, I'm going to tell you some of the fails that I had in the field, right? So what I was trying to get this to do was flip up to flat, right? I wanted it to flip up to flat and carry right. So granted, it was rainy. I had an early release, and released it on hyzer, and just it kind of like flipped up and went nose into the dirt in front of me because I didn't like follow through, which happens on any disc, right? But also I threw the Halo Mamba a couple times, like very far. It was very overstable, and I was like, what did I do? But I chopped it off on hyzer. I didn't carry all the way through. And the opposite, when I gave it too much anhyzer, it just burned over and went like 80 feet instead of like 300 feet. I think the mistakes look really bad when you're trying to force the disc to do it versus letting the disc do its thing.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Something for me when I throw discs like that, like I have a video coming out on the 24th where I tried to go to a field and check what my max distance is right now after a lot of work I've been doing. And I have a sale in my bag right now for like that, exactly what we're talking about. That super turnover. Now mine's max weight, but it's still a sale. So I step up, and at one point I almost looked like a 4-year-old, like pouting and jumping and like smacking my legs, because when I step up and throw a disc like this, exactly what Brad's saying, I get so worried that I'm going to hit it too clean on the like pull over to the right. So I early release it, and these things come out not like the flippy disc you're imagining at all. And they're like, they just go left. So I know I've stepped up, and a course in Georgia that you may have played if you played Lula. It is super wooded. There's this big downhill par 3, but it's like 450 feet because it's that downhill. Woods line. You're throwing down this like super cool wood line. It looks amazing. And I stepped up with a super understable disc and thought, all right, I'll just get this to flip over, flex out. It'll be amazing. Oh, man. And then I did exactly what Brad said and just early released it, shot it in the trees in the left. And it was like, cool, I'm taking a double bogey if I play really well now.
Right. And it's one thing if you're like, okay, I'm throwing a overstable disc or a neutral disc, and it gets a little stable on you because you put too much hyzer on it. It's another thing to be like, okay, I need this just to go right, and you go left. Like
hard.
Hard left. So that's that's the danger for this as well. Yeah. And so I think just being comfortable. The biggest thing I'm trying to learn and like put in my game now is like letting the disc do the work, not trying to make myself make the disc do the work. So these definitely teach you that.
Yeah. And it's a trust thing. Like you throw it well, you throw it clean, it will turn over, because it is that. As much as you look at your Raider and you know that no matter how you think about it, throw it, if you borrowed someone else's arm and had them throw it, it still is going to go left for you right now, Mark. The Mamba and the Sail, if you throw them correctly, they're going to go right. And so you just have to build that like trust relationship with that disc. So Brad, my final question would be, after talking with Mark, is there one that stands out above the other?
I think for me, if I had to recommend, I think I'm going to send you the Mamba, Mark, just because
the name is cooler.
Yeah, it looks cool.
And it's got a snake.
Yeah. I think just based on I think based on the plastics that you're throwing, you're going to like the feel of this plastic maybe a little bit better. It's going to feel more comfortable to you. I also think just that little extra touch of stability, again, as much as this disc can have, will make it a little bit friendlier for you to use at first. I do think this Sail is more touchy than the Mamba, but the Mamba will still accomplish the same thing. So that's for that reason, I think I'm going to send you the Mamba over.
Come on. So our question then, Mark, would be, would you be willing to come back on in a future episode and let us know how the Mamba flies for you?
100%. Absolutely. If you get bit by Mattis, Robbie.
Uh-oh. Let it be known.
Like, sorry, Mark can't come back.
Yeah. Robbie is a sissy, and therefore we never saw Mark again.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, Mark, we appreciate you. We hope you and your family and your canines have a wonderful Merry Christmas, and thanks for coming on, man.
Same to you guys. Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, until next time, we'll see you.
Man, I mean, I say it all the time. We have fantastic guests that come on quite often, and y'all, it is like, I hope you can tell when we're laughing, having a good time. I hope it makes truly a more enjoyable podcast to listen to. So Mark, thank you so much for being a great guest.
Yeah, it was great. And I think it's refreshing. I mean, I think we went through a few episodes where people were a little bit more seasoned, like Reed was on, and a few people that have really been building their bag and kind of understand. I think it's refreshing to go back kind of to the roots a little bit and look at someone who's like pretty brand new. And like, that's kind of the vibe we want to give here is like, where do you start from the beginning? How what does that look like when you're starting to build your bag and you're trying out discs, So I appreciate Mark coming on and being very transparent and honest. And, hopefully that was helpful. It was helpful for me because, again, I'm trying to find that slot in my bag, and that's both applicable to someone who's like a couple year in player, someone who's brand new, like Mark, well, newish, right? And then Robbie, even for someone like you who is a coach and has been playing for a long time, it's helpful. So hopefully that bridges all the gaps between all types of players.
Absolutely. And like Brad said, we're not just trying to bring on one particular type of guest so that you guys are like, oh, you know what? I'm a decent player now. In the bag, it's not for me anymore. Or you're looking at, oh, yeah, they got all these players on. They all throw 300 feet, and I don't throw 300 feet. So clearly it's not for me. What we're trying to do here is, yes, we talk specifics of that player's bag, but really we want to open up those question marks of how do you build your bag? And I think it's been so fun. We'll have to do an episode in the 40s sometime. I know, Brad, you sent me the comparison between what your bag looked like before the show and what it looks like now. It's so fun, and we love hearing stories about things like that. So if you have stories like that, please let us know. It makes the mornings and the lining up the guests and all of that. It makes it even more fun because it shows that we're doing something of value here.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that a lot from everybody.
And speaking of value, a place that you can find a lot of value is at foundationdisc.com. Brad, what's new in the warehouse?
So warehouse obviously drops are a little slow because of this time of year, but we did have a couple. The Zen 2 came out from Discmania as well. We also got some really cool C-Line FDs, but they have the small Lazat stamp on them. So very cool.
Sick.
I know. I took the FDs out of my bag and I'm like, as a Simon fan, just as a human, and like, I'm like, the FD wasn't that bad. Maybe I can put it back in, but I'm like, no, don't do it. But those are pretty sick. We have some trilogies coming out. I think there's a Orbit Enforcer that will be out when this drops. There's a Culprit that's coming out. And a couple things we haven't had in a while, like a Stag, for instance. Like we finally got Stags back in. Great disc. Hatchets, another great disc that we tried out on the podcast that I really like, just didn't have a spot in my bag for it. We actually still have some Captain's Raptors left too.
Wow.
If you wanted one of those, there's still several really, really cool ESP swirl ones that we have. So check those out. And we're lucky enough to get another batch of Athenas in as well. So both the Athenas and Captain's Raptors, picture of every disc. You can go in and pick out the cool swirled stamp combo that you like. So make sure everyone's checking those out.
Dude, I am here for it. Now, something else we had talked about is that there was a restock of some sort that had gone down.
One of these guys.
So
Atlas Scout Rangefinder, obviously. I've been waiting for a minute to get these back in stock. They're back in stock at atlasdgs.com. Go check those out. And special Christmas gift. Merry Christmas to all the In the Bag listeners. If you use the code ITB22 at checkout, you get $10 off your Scout Rangefinder. So make sure you head over, a little Christmas gift for yourself. If you're like, hey, I got a little extra cash in my stocking from Santa, then go over and check that out. And again, ITB22 gets you $10 off the Scout Rangefinder at atlasdgs.com.
Absolutely. Y'all, I use my rangefinder literally all the time. I found myself during Vlogmas this season because I was in and out of like my two bags. I have my main bag that has my Scout in it, and then I have like I'm playing with these weird discs today or these weird discs today. My Scout just literally moved back and forth between the two of them because it was like I have so much confidence because I've spent time in the field. It makes your field work more effective because you can throw your discs, set your bag down on where you threw from, go to where you threw, range find, boom, you know how far you're throwing your discs, so that when you get to the course, you can say, oh, I'm 225 feet out. For me personally, I'm throwing a pig here, or if I was 250 feet out here, do I feel a little more comfortable throwing a Firebird or whatever that might be?
Mm-hmm.
You can make those adjustments. And I mean, for the value, especially with the $10 off, guys, can't beat it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Robbie, this is the last episode before Christmas. So I hope you have a very Merry Christmas as well. Hope all the listeners have a very Merry Christmas. And, if it's good,
Keep it in the bag.
we'll see you.